appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by the talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-line broadcast bunker on the beautiful south coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
I hope you're strapped in, and I hope you have libations with you too, because you might need it for this show. It's going to be an interesting conversation that I'm going to be having here with my guest, Senate candidate Todd Vaughn. I'm going to have him on here in a second, but I want to let you know that this is a special Friday edition. I'm going to try to do these a little bit more often, and I'm going to continue my Monday shows at 3 o'clock. Hopefully we'll bring back Where's 3H Tree Service. We weren't able to play that this past week because I did a recorded conversation with a lady who, well, she's a little bit more green than I am. But she's a lady who, Denise Barrett, who's with Forest Bridges, and we had a conversation about the ONC lands, and I understand where she comes from. I get it, but excuse me, but I'm not one of those who thinks that the Forest Service is going to change their views, whether you're an environmentalist, whether you're a conservationist, a logger, or whatnot. I don't think the BLM or the Department of Interior really gives a damn about us out here in the West. They live in their offices. They're a bureaucracy ran by bureaucrats who just couldn't care less about those of us in rural Oregon or anywhere else for that matter. And so I just don't see the ONC lands changing that much. The only chance right now we have is that they are going up to the Supreme Court. The counties are, the 18 counties from Oregon, are going up to the Supreme Court to make their argument to get the reparations that they deserve, that they haven't received from the deal, the 1937 deal that they made with the federal government. And at this point, I think they should take those ONC lands and give them back to the counties and let the counties decide how best to use them. And in fact, I would even argue further than that as a libertarian. Maybe they should take those ONC lands and sell them to the highest bidder. As long as it ain't China, I really don't care. And then that should definitely be a rule. They're great lands and they can be used for a lot. But at this point, I think they would be better in private hands than in government hands, the county hands, or definitely the BLM agency. Is just not a good agency. And so I'm going to bring on my next guest. He's a wonderful man, and he's running against David Brock Smith, the man who needs to be replaced. And of course, that is Todd Vaughn. Todd, how you doing?
Hey, Rob. Good to see you.
It is good to see you. I'm glad you're here. We nearly did a lot of traveling today, and I was kind of excited that it got called off because, man, that weather was something out there, and I heard you got snow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were running our chainsaws this morning, and the snow was coming down. It was beautiful. We pulled up to where we were working, and the hillside was white, and the sky right above us was blue, and then the sky over the hill that was white was just black. I mean, black.
Yeah.
I had never seen a sky quite like that. And when it looks like that, I looked at my cutting partner and I was like, hey, we're going to get snowed on like we haven't been snowed on in a long time. Sure enough, about an hour later, here it came. We were in a blizzard.
Yeah. And
we got it.
Well, that's good. I mean, I was telling you before we went on air how rainy it was here, and we were having some serious thundering and lightning going on. It was just rumbling here, and the whole house was shaking. It's really cool out here on the coast when they get like that. I prefer it in the daytime because at nighttime I like to sleep and don't want to be woken up by the thunder. But yeah, it's some massive weather we're happening. I'm ready for a little bit of sunshine. I don't know about you, but I'm just, it's been a really rainy year.
Yeah, the only problem with sunshine is then the grass starts growing and you got to mow the grass all the time.
Yeah, I haven't figured out why in July I have plenty of weeds and the grass starts dying. I don't know what keeps the weeds growing, but the grass dies. I haven't figured that out yet here in Oregon, but it's a weird situation. If it wasn't for dandelions, I'd have no yard at all.
Yeah, it's just the nature of the game,
That's completely
the stuff you don't want is the stuff that hangs on the longest.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. If I could grow tomatoes like dandelions, I'd be a tomato paste rich man, I tell you. And yeah, it would be a lot better. How's the campaigning going for you?
Well, I'll tell you, our meet and greets have been a little bit slow. I think it's still early in the season, so maybe that's to be expected. To be honest with you, this is the first real campaign that I've experienced, so I don't really know what to expect. But I've met a lot of neat people and talked to a lot of neat people. I get phone calls now from people I don't even know that
Nice.
that a couple of them have just said, "Hey, we saw you at such and such place, and we really like you, and we're supporting you." So that's very encouraging.
I think a lot of people, because I was at that meet and greet in Brookings, and I thought the people that showed up were just quite impressed with what you had to say. I think you were very informative, and I don't think they knew what was going on with their own senator, David Brock Smith, and some of the things that he was doing. And my favorite part was when you played that video of him talking about the windmills, where, he's been down here telling us he's against it, but when he was up in Salem, he was all for it.
Yeah, it seems like the story can change rapidly when it comes to politicians, doesn't it?
It really does. And, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show. We were talking about the party. We were talking about China not too long ago. And I think it leads into a very interesting conversation because during the primary, both major parties, and I don't know how much it's true with the minor parties because they pick their candidates through convention. They don't do it through a vote of the people. But a primary for the major parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, in both parties, we really beat the hell out of our own candidates. And, it's a strange process. Politics is just a weird thing. It's not like any other business in the world because it's the only place where you can fail and get a promotion. It's the only place where it's a popularity contest in many rights. And it's sometimes it's the more you lie, the better you do. Is that kind of resonating with you?
Yeah, I actually found the beginning of the process that we experienced when I announced to run against Brock Smith. It was right during a time when we were finding out some new information on him, some different connections that he had with donors that had connections to China. And the Republican Party did not want us vetting Brock Smith at all. And in fact, those of us who are on the executive board that began to become more and more interested in looking into his history and including how he's voted and his record as far as CPAC and everything, the stuff that we were looking at, they did not want our own people on our executive board, our chair, other people that were supporting Brock Smith. He's got the support of our county commissioners. He was appointed by them and the commissioners in Curry and Coos County. And none of the people I would call it a political class in these counties. I don't know what else you could call it. But none of the people in the political class, most of whom I would consider, most of whom have an orientation towards what I would call career politicians. They've been in politics for quite a while, whether they were commissioners or representatives or whatever. Most of those people did not want to see us vetting David Brock Smith at all, which I find very interesting because he was appointed. And if you're going to vet a candidate, especially, you would want to vet an appointed candidate that has never been through an election, at least for this position. He had been a representative and a commissioner. I think he had been a representative for 3 times. So everybody knew him in Salem, but still the locals that appointed him did not want us vetting him. And it's actually caused a lot of friction within the GOP for those of us who are on the executive board. I'm a delegate on the executive board. So, yeah.
And that's
Very
Douglas
interesting.
County. Douglas County.
Douglas
And
County, yes.
it's not any difference here for me. As you know, I kind of kicked it off when me and Diane Rich found out a lot of the secrets that David Brock Smith was keeping. And one of them is that he was taking money, a lot of money, from a California Democrat who's still registered as a Democrat. And people here didn't want to hear it in the party either. And they were acting like, you know, it's like a doctor, you telling somebody that there's a cancer and then getting mad at the doctor, when it's like all we were doing was trying to let them know that this was going on. And they were like, shh, don't tell anybody. And it almost, and I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but you almost have to suspect, if they were that afraid of us finding out about David Brock Smith, what secrets are they hiding? Because it seems like they may not want us to know about what they're doing as well. I don't know if you got
Yeah,
that.
I think that some politicians, probably the more successful ones, like if you were going to compare with Washington, D.C., you might consider Kevin McCarthy or maybe Mitch McConnell, who, by the way, congratulations to all the America Firsters out there that pay attention to the political news, because we just got rid of the 3 mix. Adios.
Yeah.
McDaniel, McCarthy, and McConnell. All gone. That's something to celebrate if you're an America First patriot. But, you know, I think that these guys start out locally, probably. All 3 of those people probably started out in local politics somewhere in the nation and rose to the top. And I think that our dear appointed Senator Brock Smith is, or wants to be, on a trajectory that leads him to, you know, some power, prestige, money, no doubt. All these type of politicians seem to come into office as fairly average, maybe entrepreneurs or whatever, but when they leave, not so average. They're millionaires, almost all of them. You know, it's just amazing how that happens.
It's amazing how that happens, and they make a lot of money and they have no real excuse for it. And it seems like the American people just put up with it. It's sad, you know, and there have been presidents and vice presidents in history who, when they left office, they were much more poor than they were when they went into office. Jefferson died penniless, and they had to sell most everything he owned to pay off his debts in his death. And so I forget the vice president who actually died on a bench in Washington, D.C., and they found his body, and that's how he was literally homeless. And so, you know, it just, yeah, there were times when, you know, there were people who actually did it seems like for the right reasons, and they made the right choices. And I think that's why we kind of remember Jefferson for that kind of thing. But going back to Smith, it was, you know, something funny happened. We in the last commissioners meeting, they were debating 4 advisory questions for the ballot. And one of those questions was about election integrity and going back to a write-in ballot, a one-day election. And the Democrats came out in full force against this. I mean, the room was full of about 50 or 60 Democrats. And the Republican Party, sadly, the Republican Party under Rod Schilling, the chair, they weren't even there. They were completely AWOL, and which was sad because there were a couple of really good questions that I would have liked to have seen go on the ballot, and all 4 of them were eventually tabled. But one of the things that happened is that several people had gotten up and were saying that there is no election fraud whatsoever in our elections, which we know is not true, because there is, even if you don't believe what many of us on the right are saying, there is election fraud going on. There is no doubt about it. And one of the things that I thought was ironic, and I didn't get a chance to speak to this, was that David Brock Smith's largest contributor, Thomas Tuttle, he voted in both presidential primaries during 2020 in the state of Oregon and in the state of California. That's election fraud. He also voted in 2018 in the presidential general election, or during that general election of 2018. And he did it in both states, which is the second time he committed voter fraud. And if I would have had time and would have known that this was going to happen at the meeting, I would have presented them with the evidence that I have that show that he was not only registered in California in the county of San Francisco, but he's also registered in Curry County and voted several times in both counties during the same elections, and proving that election fraud goes on. And then I would have taken it one step further and explained to him that in Bandon, because we're on the coast, we have a lot of people who are they fly off to other places during the winter and they come here for the summer. And so there are a lot of summer homes here, 400, I think it was estimated, summer homes. And I wonder how many of them get a ballot for their summer home and get a ballot at the other place they live, and how many of them are taking advantage of it. And I asked that of the county clerk, and they really didn't know. They said they don't really check that. They have no clue whatsoever. Can you believe this?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You might have heard it too. It seems like in our conversations that we might have talked about this, but there was a recent survey taken that was from a fairly accurate group. I can't remember who they were. That it turns out nationwide, like 20% of the people in the survey acknowledged that they had partaken in some form of election fraud, usually that they had filled out 2 ballots. So this is not an uncommon thing at all. It's actually whenever you have mail-in ballots, this happens on a widespread basis. So yeah, I don't know why anybody would think that Oregon doesn't have some serious election fraud going on. I worked with a group of people in Douglas County for quite a while. That's kind of how I got my start in the GOP, and working with this group of people on election integrity was actually how I ended up getting on the board with a bunch of other people I was working with in this election integrity group. So we actually dealt with this issue quite a bit. And I can tell you, between Eric, the electronic registration system that Oregon is still functioning under, and a number of the other issues like the one you're talking about, people receiving multiple ballots and everything else, and just the fact that the tabulators are, computerized machines. Of course, people say, oh, there's no way you can connect them to the internet, but we all know that they have Wi-Fi. We know that they are connected to the internet if you want them to be. And so I think it's a serious problem. I talk to people still that push back against that. At one of the meet and greets, I got into a fairly serious discussion with a guy that just insisted that Douglas County's elections were perfect, and all I can say is there's a reason why they wanted to charge us $60,000 for ballot images from 2020. They would not let us have ballot images unless we gave them $60,000. Now, why in the world would you charge a group of citizens who were volunteering their services for the good of the public? Why would you charge a group of people like that $60,000 for public information if there wasn't something going on?
There were so many election anomalies. Now, I can't specifically say that we found absolute proof of corruption, but there were so many election anomalies that we had a producer come out here and do a documentary called The Curious Case of Coos County about one of the court cases that we had, because we had gone to the county and asked them to see the ballot images from 2020. And guess what? They didn't have a backup for those ballot images. Whoops, they're all gone. We can't produce them. And so we took them to court and demanded that they reproduce those ballot images however they had to do it. And then we wanted to see them rerun the election. And the judge said in this case, and it was Judge Stone, who was usually a pretty good guy, but in this case, and I love this comment. He says, I'd like to allow them to run the election again, but I doubt they would come out with the same results. So what does that tell you when a judge is even telling you that they couldn't get the same results by running the same ballots again? I mean, what does that mean? Well, and I think we all know what it means. There's some shenanigans going on.
The thing that they do to people who question, really people who question anything in regard to the government, the thing that they're doing to us, especially in the recent years, is making us feel like we're conspiracy theorists, bad guys, trouble causers, rebels, whatever. And it's just amazing. It's kind of like a form of intimidation. But these are our elections, and we have plenty of evidence that they are not free and fair. And for us to be categorized as conspiracy theorists just because we want to look into them, to actually look at the things like ballot images. We actually want to have a discussion about voter rolls. We actually want to participate as we are told to do by all of our founding documents, and the whole idea of representative government, and the whole idea of the aspect of democracy, which the only aspect of democracy that we really have is in regard to elections. I mean, we are a constitutional republic, but there is this process of voting that is what actually defines self-governance for us that believe that representative government is probably the way to go. But we have to know that our elections are free and fair. We have to know that. So I don't know why they give us such a hard time unless they're cheating.
Unless there's something going on. Yeah, there has to be something going on. I just got an email not too long ago, just a few minutes ago, from a lady named Avis. She always sends me stuff. And one of the things she put this email stated was that Stephen Jonkis just reported this week that the case with Mark Thielman, of which we are the plaintiff with about 5 other Oregonians, for election reforms, is going to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has agreed to hear the arguments for constitutionality. The court date will be sometime in March or April. And if they win, this could have some type of consequences on mail-in ballots. So that's interesting. I don't know if you heard that one yet.
No, I did not. I've been following that lawsuit. In fact, I actually had a deposition in on that lawsuit myself. And I think part of that deposition was directly in regard to my experience with running against Brock Smith in the appointment process. I can't remember. I actually wrote a number of things. I think that's the one we entered as my deposition. Because I was part of the election integrity group, I also bore witness to some of the things we experienced with our county. So that was a suit about voters being disenfranchised by what was going on. Is that correct?
Yes. And the sad part is we knew when Dallas Hurd left office, we knew that David Brock Smith was going to vie for that office as his replacement. And we knew more than likely Court Boyce was going to be the one who was going to try to move into the House of Representatives. And the sad part is we didn't want either one of them, because we knew once David Brock Smith got into the Senate and once Court Boyce got into the House, it's going to take an act of God to get them out. I mean, these people are going to be there for life. This is a career for them. And I hate sending career politicians to Salem or to Washington. I think it's a bad idea. I prefer people who are willing to rattle the cage and rock the ship, and be willing to take those chances. And in fact, that's why I'm supporting you, Todd, is that you have already said you're not looking to be in office any more than one term, because you think that because you're going to rock the boat and rattle some cages, that you probably won't be there any longer than just one term. And I think that's the best way to go forward with a campaign. And you're brave enough to talk about this because you talked about it at the meet and greet. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your opinion on that?
Well, I think that I'm like most of us out here in these rural counties. I don't feel like we're being represented, period. Because the people that are going to Salem are actually not just your average person, your average working person, or for that matter, your average small business entrepreneur. They are actually people that got into politics and have been in it for quite a while and have ambitions to stay in it, just like we were talking about earlier. This is what they want to do. They haven't been producing anything like those of us who are in the real world, the profit-oriented world where you have to produce or it doesn't work out for you as a worker or as an entrepreneur, whatever. And those kind of people, I don't think they really can represent everyday working people in these rural counties. Because I don't think they understand us, and they certainly don't listen to us because they have an agenda. They have a group of people they're working with. Some of them, in Brock Smith's case, are definitely Democrats. And as they work with these people and form relationships with these people, I actually think that their constituents back home, although when it comes election time, they lay it on thick, but I actually think that their constituents back home are really on the back burner for these guys when they're operating the way they operate in Salem. From what I can see, I think they kind of forget about us for a while when they're in session and do what they think they need to do. They make deals. I don't know what all those deals include, but like I said, at the end of the day, it seems like all these guys come out way ahead somehow. I'm not sure how.
And, once again, this is why I'm supporting you. And you have my full endorsement, is that there are so many people who the first thing they tell you when you meet them at a meet and greet or you listen to them speak is they say, well, I'm a businessman and I'm used to making compromises. I'm used to reaching across the aisle and working with other people. And as soon as they say that, I'm just turned off. There's nothing more that I want to hear, because I don't want to hear about people being nice and kind to each other. We're at war here, man. We are at war.
Exactly.
We got a Marxist revolution that's going on. And I'll take the word of the Marxists who were marching in the street through 2020 and 2021, carrying commie flags, and they're still out there now. Now they've got flags and signs that say "kill the Jew." Can you believe this? We're living in a world where people like you and me are called fascist, but you got the leftists out in the streets with signs that say, "death to Israel" and "kill the Jews." And they have openly admitted that they want change. They want Marxism. They want communism. They want a Chinese-style government. And that is the worst thing that could ever happen to a free country, because it's a color revolution that's going to destroy our culture. It's going to destroy families. It's going to destroy our way of life. And we're at war. So I want someone to go back to Salem and to go back to Washington ready to do battle. And it seems like you're ready to do battle. And then I look at people like David Brock Smith and to Court Boyce, who I think is completely clueless. I think he is so naive and just so clueless. It's pathetic. He's not going to do any good for us. And I'd much rather have someone up there who's going to cause trouble, who's going to yell and scream from the rafters when this crap is going on.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any way to negotiate our way out of where we're at as a Republican Party in Salem. They've just controlled the thing for so long. The problem is part of our Republican caucus is doing the wheeling and dealing with the Democrats thing. They're trying to get whatever they can. I don't know if they're trying to get some crumbs, to bring back to their constituents. That's what they act like they're doing. We'll
Right.
bring you something back home. We don't have any choice except to go along with these guys. That's one of the things I hear from them. But I don't want that either, Rob. I actually want a representative to go up and call this crap exactly what it is and just keep calling it what it is. It is Marxism. How can we accept half a lie? How do you accept half a lie? I was thinking, how about if we just tell our wives, we're really good most of the time, but every now and then we just, we screw up a little bit. We go out and we commit adultery. It's not a problem, is it? That's not a problem for you, honey, is it?
Right.
Of course it's a problem. If you're going to live a life of integrity, you can't just cross the line whenever you feel like it. That's not the way it works. And I want to see conservative Republicans that just don't cross the line. They believe in the cause. They believe in the Constitution. They believe in the Western civilization, Judeo-Christian ethos, whether you're a true believer or a born-again believer, or a person that at least believes in the ethics that our culture was built on. It's that doesn't, that's up to you. But this thing, we are part of a Western culture, and it is being destroyed by Marxism, and especially so in Oregon. And of all the states in the United States, everybody knows. Even Steve Bannon mentioned it the other day. He's like, I didn't know you guys had any conservatives in Oregon. I watched Bannon. I watched The War Room. And that's what everybody thinks. And you know what? Sometimes it feels like it's that bad, but it's not in reality. If you go out into areas like where I live here in Douglas County, there's a lot of conservatives. There's a lot of great people that are living the American dream, the ones that haven't been, basically broke by the amount of inflation we've had. A lot of us are suffering, because of the inflation. But there's a lot of people throughout these three counties that are conservatives and are living the constitutional American lifestyle, even though it's really hard to do with the amount of pressure from the left that we're getting. So we're still out here. But people don't even think of Oregon as having conservatives in it, because when you look at it from the outside, it just looks like one of the bluest states in the United States.
And that's one of the problem I'm having with a lot of friends, is trying to convince them to stay in the Republican Party, because you've got so many of the establishment who want you to this go along to get along attitude they have is, well, he's got an R behind his name, he can win, and we need winners. And that's not true. I'd rather lose with dignity than win with shame. And that's what we're doing. And that's what they're asking of people. And people like you and me, and other patriots, we're not going to put up with that crap. We're not going to listen to that garbage, and we're not going to stand for it. And we're going to fight. They think we're going to go away. They think they can shut us out. And I know that's what the chair in your county is trying to do. And that's what the chair of the Republican Party here in Coos County is trying to do. But we're not going to allow that. We're going to fight back, and we're going to call him on his own game. And when the shoe's on the other foot, we're not going to be like them. We're going to make sure that the party is open, that everyone is welcome, and that it's complete transparency, that if you want to come in and ask any of our representative questions, or you want to film any of our representatives, we're going to allow you to do that. And we're going to take it with pride, because if they're screwing up, I want to be the first one to know it. If Todd Vaughn, if I vote for Todd Vaughn and you go back to Salem, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing that you're doing what David Brock Smith is and completely compromising with them on several bills, which in a minute we'll talk about that, because he just did that recently with the Democrats. I'm going to call you out on it. And I would only wish that if the party is true to itself it would allow that. And I think you pretty much are with me on that one.
Yeah, I think the Republican Party platform, I am a delegate, so I just actually worked on that platform. So I know every single plank of the platform. We just did that in Pendleton. It was a good experience. I can tell you, our platform there's a couple things that I personally would tweak a little bit, but you can expect that with anything as huge as, this platform is, as detailed as it is. But I can tell you, the Republican Party platform, if you're a true conservative, if you read it, go read it. Anybody out there listening to this, go read our platform. It's a wonderful platform. It's something that we all, if we are true conservatives and truly believe in what the United States was founded on, our platform here in Oregon is a wonderful platform. We should all be proud of it. And we should hold our Republican elected officials to the platform. And I guarantee you that the disagreements we have with Brock Smith and the way he's voted, every single one of those votes that we disagree with, there's something directly related to the Republican platform that we do not like. And it's there. All you got to do is look at the details of the law that he either voted no or yes for, that we disagreed with his position. And you will see that there's something in there that disagrees with our platform almost every time.
Almost every time. And in fact, when we were at the meeting where we were presenting the PowerPoint on David Brock Smith and his donor and his voting record, there were, I think it was Terry Noonkester and it was Michaela Hammerson who had came up to us after the meeting and told us about, wow, that rain is something else. I don't know if you can hear that through the speaker, but it's
pouring
coming
down at my house too right now. It's hitting my tin roof right now.
Yeah. Cool. So, but they came up to me after the meeting and both of them described instances where they had amendments that they wanted to put in the platform, and David Brock Smith asked them to water down those amendments so they weren't so restrictive or cumbersome on somebody who wanted to blur the lines when it comes to following the rules. You know what I mean?
We had a resolution that we wanted to have passed that they actually prevented. And David Brock Smith was part of how they prevented us from bringing that resolution to the floor. And the resolution was a condemnation of this legal warfare that they're using on Donald Trump, all of his indictments. And basically, the resolution, the final sentence was that any Republican that is not willing to condemn this type of legal warfare that these indictments actually represented, that the rest of us would not support them, those Republicans in an election, because it is directly against our platform. It's unconstitutional. These indictments are unconstitutional. They're
right.
And David Brock Smith he wanted that last sentence to be removed. And of course, Michaela Hammerson and I argued back against it and said, no, this thing needs to have teeth. All of us who are Republicans need to acknowledge that this stuff is exactly what it is. It's unconstitutional and we need to condemn it. And any Republican that's not willing to condemn it, we need to not support that Republican, because this thing goes directly against the plank in our platform. And he actually helped that resolution to not make it to the floor that day. And we were really discouraged.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And I think it shows his quality of character or the lack thereof. And
we were not very happy. It wasn't something that should have even been hard. If you look at what they're doing to Donald Trump, if you look at the indictments, they are so ridiculous. What Republican would not condemn what they're doing? But he didn't want to see that happen. And it was based on some of the people who were running, representatives that were running in tight races, that he felt that that if we all agreed to that there might be some sort of conflict for those people that were running in tight races. And this is the kind of stuff that gets you in trouble when you start compromising for whatever reasons. It's kind of like that cheating on your wife thing. There's no excuse. If it's right, you got to go with it. And that's just I think that we have to draw the lines and hold the lines. That's the
Yeah,
time period we're in.
I completely agree with you. The party is just, it's going to fall apart if it doesn't self-evaluate, especially, and I'm talking about the establishment, if it doesn't evaluate and use some reflection of what they're doing, they're going to lose people who who see this from the outside and would like to participate in the process, but they look at their own party and they realize how corrupt it is. Because if their own party is this corrupt, if their own party is lacking that integrity, who the hell would want to get involved with it? And I just recently talked to a gentleman out of leaving the Republicans, because I told him, I said, now's the time to stay as a Republican. I re-registered as a Republican, and the only reason is because I want to do something about this party. I took enough heat from them. I'm not going to tolerate this anymore, and it's got to happen.
Yeah, that's, we talked about this before. That's what the precinct strategy is all about. And that's how I became a PCP is, it's a strategy to take over the Republican Party from the bottom up with America First patriots, people that actually are involved because we love the country. We're not in it to make money. We're not in it to gain power or prestige. We're in it because we believe that our constitutional republic is about to go over the edge and we're never going to get it back again. And those are the people that we need to actually start fighting together. Yeah. And the America First movement is real. I mean, if you guys watch what's happening at Trump rallies and you see the energy that's there behind Donald Trump right now, and that includes what they're doing with these indictments, the energy grows every time they do another ridiculously illegal, unconstitutional thing to him. He's just got that many more people on his side. And this movement is growing. All I can say to your listeners is get on board this movement and help us take the Republican Party back from the bottom up, which means from the precinct level up. The only thing I could say is I wish it was happening a lot faster. But once again, Ronna McDaniel is down the road. And there's a reason why she's down the road. She's down the road because of the America First movement. That's why.
And you're absolutely right. And that was a nice day for us.
Yeah.
For anyone who's watching or listening, if you're a Republican and you've been a Republican for over 180 days, you should run for precinct captain. And all you have to do, and I forget the number of the form. I was thinking it's 400. I believe it's 400. SEL 400.
Yes, SEL 105.
Oh, 105. My apologies. SEL 105.
I've got it right here because my wife and I are just about to fill it out.
Nice.
You got to fill it out. You got to fill it out pretty quick here. You only got 2 more weeks, honey?
Yeah.
March 12th. So you only got another week and a half.
March 12th. And SEL 105. And you can download that from the Secretary of State, from the Elections Division of the Secretary of State. There's a tab that says Manuals and Forms. Click that tab under the Forms, and it will have a listing of all the forms. And this is SEL 105. Take that form, fill it out, and under the section where it asks you what precinct you're running for, if you don't know what precinct you're in, all you got to do is call your county clerk and she can tell you probably within just a couple of minutes. So that's what I recommend everyone do right now who is sick and tired of these fat cat Republicans who have taken over the party, who are abusing their authority in those positions. You need to stand up to it, and you need to support people like Michaela Hammerson, people like Danessa Rains and Diane Rich, who all they were doing was exposing the corruption, and they have paid a price for this. And you all can be precinct captains. And I got news for you. I just got a message from someone who just wrote me that the resolution you were talking about, the resolution to condemning the indictments of former President Donald Trump, that will be presented to the ORP on March 16th. That's a Saturday. At the conference here in Coos Bay. They're going to be at the mill, and people should contact their county party and tell their delegates to support it. The delegates will be the ones who are going to be at this meeting and to decide this. And this isn't a public meeting. This is a meeting for the state central committee, but it is a casino. So if you want to go hang out at the blackjack table, or you want to hang out at the one-armed bandit and wait for your senators and your reps to walk by and catch them and talk to them, I highly recommend it. And this is happening on the 15th and the 16th at the Mill Casino here in Coos Bay. So if you're all out there listening, that's the time to go and maybe drop a few bills at the blackjack table. I'm not recommending you go gamble, but it is something you can do while waiting for your senator to pass by.
That's right. Come talk to me. I'll be there.
Yeah, all your delegates will be there. I think for us, Stan and Teresa Avery are delegates. Of course, Rod Schilling, I believe, is going to be a delegate there. And so you want to catch these people and you want to talk to them, and you want to do it in a public place where they can't deny it, then that's the time to do it. So, and you're going to be there, of course.
Yep. It's a big vote. We're voting on our national committee man and national committee woman. So there's some, and our, I guess, are we going to be voting? I think we're going to be for, the other officials too. Is that right? Rod, do you know? Or Rob, do you know? Are we going to be voting for, or is Huang's position up for grabs too? The chair's position? No, the national committee men and the national committee woman are going to be up for vote. So Solomon Yu is running. Don Powers is running against him. And I think one other guy we've got.
There's two other people, I think, in that race.
Two other people in that race. Yeah. So I've actually been getting Helen Heller and what is it? Regina. Yep. So it's really kind of a tough decision because I actually like a couple of the different ladies that are running. I'm not decided for sure how I'm going to vote yet. So I'm still weighing things out. We'll see. It's going to be a pretty wild competition with Powers and Hugh. I might have a hard time with thinking of his
Solomon Yu and Don
Solomon
Powers.
Yu, yeah. So Solomon has, he has some followers, but it's going to be a fun one to see who wins that one, because I think that's going to be really close.
So someone, that document that I just told you of, that resolution, someone had sent me the document. I'm going to try to read it here. It's I hate reading off the phone. It's so hard to see stuff. My eyes, then once you hit over 50, they go to shit. It says, now and therefore be it resolved that the Douglas County Republican Party condemn these indictments against the 45th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump. We call on all elected Republican officials in Oregon and the United States to voice their opposition to political persecution. Furthermore, we resolve that any Republican elected official who fails to stand against this corruption will have violated the Oregon Republican platform and will no longer have the support of the Oregon Republican Party. Wow, that's that last sentence. That was the one that was David Brock Smith wanted taken out of that. Can you imagine that? Because we don't want people to be held up to their standards, right? We don't want to have any standards for our elected officials, right? Jeez.
That's it.
So
yeah. Hopefully that passes. I think it will. I think it'll pass.
I hope it does. And I think that the Republican Party is there have been a lot more America first, a lot more patriots who have infiltrated the party. And I shouldn't even say infiltrated, that makes it sound nefarious, but they have infiltrated the party and have really taken over a lot of positions. And, Solomon Yu is someone who I dealt with when I was on the Central Committee. And I've always heard a lot of rumors about him that he has connections with the Chinese communists. I have no idea if that's true. I have no evidence whatsoever of that. But I do know that I've personally, on my radio show, I have talked to Dallas Hurd the day he resigned. It was either the day he resigned or the day after he resigned from his position for the Republican Party. And he put the blame of many of the problems of him not being able to do things on Solomon Yu. And that was the same thing that Bob Tiernan was complaining about when I was on the Central Committee back in the mid 2000s. It was the thing that Susan Gallagher complained about. And it was the same thing that Art Robinson complained about, that he, as a state committee person, and this is Solomon Yu, had a group of people who were very powerful and still are very powerful because they have a lot of money, they have a lot of power, and they were able to pull the party in the direction they wanted and not the way that many of the chairs and the people who were the delegates, not the way they wanted to go. And I saw that personally myself. And, I don't know, like I said, whether there's anything nefarious going on with Solomon Yu as far as the Chinese Communist Party, but I do know there are a lot of questionable actions that I think definitely should be asked about that man. And I think at this point, we probably should, maybe change him out. And someone just asked me, or said to me that I should have you on my show. And I have asked you to come on my show, and he did not want to do that. So, it's, I don't know what to tell you. He actually referenced me and my show during the recall that they just recently had. And I don't know if you were there for that recall. Were you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was there. Yeah. And I don't know. The problem, Rob, is that most of these people are not entirely honest. so
that is a problem.
It's you never know who to believe. And when it comes to being reelected, or even a lot of them getting elected, I guess the first time, whatever, they'll lie to you in order to get reelected. It's just like it's common. It's very common, and so I never know who to believe. And I told Solomon Yu that when he called. I've talked to both these guys. They all call the delegates. There's only so many of us. There's not that many delegates total. Like 2 to 4 per county, pretty much. So just add it up. That's not that many. I think there's there's 2 delegates in every county, the chair and the vice. And then after that, like I'm first delegate, I think that there is a delegate for, I believe, another extra delegate for, I believe, every 15,000 Republicans or something in the county. I think we got 30 something. So we got 2 extra delegates. So we send 4 delegates from Douglas County. So counties that have like less than like 15,000 or whatever, they might only have 1 extra delegate beyond the chair and the vice chair. So it's different. It's based on how many Republicans are in the county. But when you add them all up, there's not many. So believe me, we all get calls from the people that are running for these offices. They call all of us delegates. We get to talk to them. And I've talked to a number of these people.
And that would put the delegates at about 120, something like that, around there.
Yeah. So I talked to these people, and I just had a long conversation with Solomon. I've talked to him a number of times before, and I told him, I said, the hardest part for me is I never know who's lying to me.
Yeah.
Because all these guys are so good at it.
Yeah.
They all lie all the time. I mean, it's like,
Right.
I mean, nothing personal against anybody, but you'd have to go ways to find a politician that wants to get reelected that's not lying about something. It's that bad. I mean, I hate to say it, but there's not very many really straight up people that don't tell you what you want to hear, but tell you what the truth is. I told
Wow,
Solomon that I thought, go ahead.
you might think there were a lot of shysters in politics or something. You saying that? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm serious, because they just want that position.
Right.
Politicians want to be reelected more than anything, and they're like a young guy out there, bar hopping, chasing women. He'll tell them anything. It's like that's just the way these guys are, and so yeah, it was kind of funny telling Solomon that I don't really know who to believe because all you guys, tell me what I want to hear. That's
Right.
what you guys do. And he kind of laughed. But yeah, I actually don't think Solomon is connected to the CCP. I've talked to him a number of times. I think that if anything, and what I told Solomon was, I just think we need some fresh blood. Feelings. The recall was hard on everybody. Solomon's been in there for 20 years. If there's any reason for me personally not to vote for Solomon, it's because of some of the issues you're talking about. So a lot of bad blood, and just the fact that he's been there so long. I think it's good to bring in new blood in any system.
It's like and I've been a supervisor in several different places, and there's always, especially in sales, sometimes you'll get a really good salesman who gets really good commissions. He makes a lot of money for you, but he's a real asshole. Okay. And you kind of overlook the fact that this guy's an asshole and he cuts corners and he's a jerk to everyone. You kind of overlook that because he's making you good commissions. And this happens in business. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
I've had people complain about those certain salesmen that they have to deal with. And of course I go, well, you get those commission numbers and you can act that bad too. And it's kind of a bad thing to say, but that's how you got to get results in the free world. And, you got to please your boss. You got to show a profit for the people who are your investors. So you keep that asshole salesman. And I've actually gotten rid of people who were complaining about the asshole salesmen who were nice people, but their sales sucked. So, you know what I mean? And that's just the way life works in the real world.
Well, I'll tell you this, because you brought that up, and the subject we were talking about just a minute ago with politicians and the Republican Party and those that are trying to work across the aisle and making deals, wheeling and dealing. I would say this: when it comes to elected positions like senators and representatives, I think that what you produce, like you're talking about a salesman producing and being an asshole, and tolerating him because of that. But when it comes to these positions, I think that what you need to do is you need to represent your constituents. That is the production. That is your production. Everything you do should actually be an accurate representation of what the majority of the people that sent you there to represent them would want you to do. And I think if we do that, especially when you're from counties like these down here, all you have to really do is, if you're a conservative, is just vote conservative. Small government, less taxes, school choice. It really comes down to sovereignty. I think that most of us in communities like we live in, Rob, want our individual sovereignty. We want back what we've already lost. You might call it freedoms, liberties, whatever you want to call it. It's really my right to live my life the way I want to, as long as I'm not damaging somebody else's constitutional rights. It's really that simple. And I know you are in the same bend as I am as far as conservatives. We're kind of libertarian type conservatives. Just leave me alone.
So. Yeah.
And I'm going to be happy. Just leave me alone. I don't want government in my life where they don't need to be in my life. And I think that that the production of a good politician from counties like these, that production is just good representation in line with those kind of small government conservative values. That's all you got to really do, which means you got to vote no a lot these days in Salem. That's what it means.
Yes, you got to vote no a lot.
That's it.
I got information on how many delegates there were. It's 136, and I want to thank the person who
Ah,
sent me that number. It's 136 voting positions. So, it doesn't, so you have to sway, I think about, 69 to 72 to be able to get a good majority on those. And so, yeah, that's, um, I think it's going to be an interesting race, and I'm not going to hide anything. I am supporting Don Powers, and I've known him a long time, and we've worked on a lot of different things together. And so I'm just one of those. I'm ready for a change, and I think it's just due. But like you said, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. Don may get in there, and he may screw it all up, and then I'll be sitting
I
here.
like
And,
Don.
yeah.
I like Don. I talked to him at the Curry County Central Committee meeting recently. It's a very small group down there in Curry County, but Joe Wilson took me there, and I spoke in front of him. And I like Don. He's an America First guy, and I just, like I say, I've got a couple more pieces of information to put together in my little puzzle in my mind and to make my decision. And but yeah, I had never talked to Don personally before, and then he called me, and I had a really nice conversation with him. So I think he would do a good job. Solomon, always is talking about his connection to Trump. Trump is a very important aspect of what I think is going to, anything's going to swing Oregon. It's going to be Trump getting elected, and then it's going to be the conservative Republicans in Oregon being energized, the movement being energized because Trump's back in there. People will get a little bit more hope again. Maybe people will start getting involved again, like we're talking about in the party.
I would like to see it. Yeah.
Yep. So
And
Solomon always talks about bringing Trump to Oregon, but you know what? He hasn't got that done yet. So all I can say is, now what if Solomon gets Trump's endorsement this week or next? There's a very good chance you could see that. And that's kind of really, I'm kind of waiting to see if that's what's going to happen,
yeah.
to be honest.
And that would be my question. If he's got such a good relationship, then why doesn't that happen? That seems to me like
Yep.
that would be a solid. I mean, Mike Lindell just endorsed Don Powers, and so yeah, if he could pull a rabbit out of his hat, Solomon Yu, and get Trump's endorsement, that would go a long way of sealing the deal for him. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm not a delegate, and so I won't be voting, but I will be hanging around. I'll probably be at one of those slot machines. I'll be maybe throwing down some of them blackjack cards. So, but vice. I've got a lot of vice. What can I tell you? And so
Well, you got to have
I'm
fun.
I'm not a perfect man. Never claimed to be. So I kind of want to shift this because we were talking about the infighting with the party, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here is China going from Solomon Yu now to actual China. And like I said, I don't know if there's any connection, but China is a huge problem for America. They're the ones who are causing the chaos at the behest of the leftists who are in America, who are going along with this. We've got an open border. I'm willing to bet we've already have a small Chinese army here in America. I would be willing to bet that right now that I can guarantee you that there's a group of young men who are here specifically to cause chaos, to disturb us, to fight from within if we ever go to battle, an actual military battle with China. And it's a serious situation. And one of the things that we were talking about in your campaign is what slogans to use. And one of your slogans was chop China out of Oregon. And I got a little bit of pushback from some of my buddies because they kept telling me, well, Rob, you got to understand how much money we make off of China. We're loggers and we sell those logs, we sell those wood chips. We were talking about that. At what price are we willing to pay to have that much Chinese influence over Oregon and the United States. And I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely serious problem that we're dealing with here in Oregon. I can't remember. I actually looked for it a little bit and I could not find it, but I either watched a podcast or read something. My wife does a lot of Substacks reading and stuff like that and turns me on to stuff all the time. But whatever I saw, whoever it was, and I should have written it down, but they're somebody that studies the China issue quite a bit. And they said that China, they believe that Oregon was the most infiltrated state government of all the states in the United States. And I was like, wow. I mean, this person is somebody that does quite a bit of research on this and is fairly knowledgeable. And they believe that Oregon was the most infiltrated of all the states in the United States by the CCP, by the Communist Chinese Party. So, yeah, it really comes down to integrity. It comes down to money. Whether you're selling logs or growing beef and selling beef, selling meat, whatever you're doing for a living, you have choices. You have choices about who you deal with as far as buying your hay from. If you're producing cattle, you can buy your hay from a number of different people. You have choices about who trucks your cattle to market. You should have more choices. It would be good if you did, as far as what slaughterhouses you send your cattle to, or who you sell your cattle to. And all of these are choices that you have to make as a businessman. And it's the same with logs. These are basically raw materials we're talking about here. I don't know if the beef that gets sold to China goes over to China as far as in refrigerated ships, as far as swinging meat, like halves, where it's killed over here. That's probably how it gets there. I know they buy a lot of meat, and the Oregon Cattlemen's Association supports David Brock Smith because David Brock Smith is connected to China through the Oregon China Council. He never will tell anybody whether he's still a member of the Oregon China Council. You got to really pin him down. He's pretty slippery. But he's certainly
listed. He's still listed on their board of members,
Yeah. So, but he acts as an agent between China and the Oregon Cattlemen's Association, at least cattle producers. So he probably helps keep their price up by making sure that market to China is vigorous and that there are, a lot of sales headed that direction. Who knows whether he goes over to China and meets with buyers over there on the behalf of the Oregon Cattlemen's Association. I don't know how involved he is in the transactions. I'm sure he does some of that same type of work between our mills and China. I mean, because he's on the Oregon China Council, or has been, and is definitely still connected to them. And that's what they do. They help to keep those avenues of business open. They act as agents for our people in agriculture. So, there you go. So I do not personally believe that elected officials should be acting in that context for American businesses and corporations. I believe that American business should have their own agents, private agents, at this point in time, taking care of their transactions, whatever contractual agreements are happening between them and China. Anybody that is dealing with businesses in China are dealing with the CCP. If you know how the CCP works, and a lot of people don't understand this, but you do not do business in China without dealing with the CCP, especially if you have large business interests. It's just absolutely. China is a communist country. That's the way it is. So I don't really want my elected officials doing business with communist China, period.
Right.
Now, an American business at this point in time, we are not in a war with China that has actually become kinetic. We're not at kinetic war with China. China's been at war with us for many years. They call it unrestricted warfare. It's a form of warfare that does not necessarily involve kinetic war, which is like shooting at each other and bombing
Right.
each other.
Right.
We've been at war with China for a long time, and
Yes,
they've
we have.
infiltrated all of our colleges. The Confucius institutions are in Portland State University. They've got a number of programs up there. They're in the Oregon State University. I don't know if they're in the U of O or not. I think they might be. So these guys have been working on us on a lot of different levels. If you want to know where China is probably damaging us the most, is in our capital markets. BlackRock, Interstate, Vanguard, all of these big investment capital investment groups that are really where a huge percentage of the money in the United States flows through. They actually legitimize Chinese businesses, and those businesses are on Wall Street. They're being traded as stocks, and they do not live by the same accounting standards as our American businesses do. They're given a lot of advantages. If everybody in your audience really knew the kind of crooked stuff that's going on that benefits China, it would astound everybody. But I can and Oregon's invested. Our pension plans are invested in Chinese stuff that we should not be invested in. There's a lot of billions and billions of dollars that are changing hands that are directly connected to the CCP that are not things that you and I as Americans that may be at the end of a nuclear bomb someday should be investing in, because we are actually helping China to build their military faster than any country in the world is building their military. Right now, by the way, we're dealing with them. So as far as in Oregon goes, no, I don't want our elected officials doing business with the CCP. As far as businesses go, we are not in a kinetic war with China. I don't think it's time for us to tell the Oregon Cattlemen's Association or the Douglas Timber Operators, you can't sell logs or beef to China. And I am not promoting that. If we are in a kinetic war with China someday, then I think we should say, hey, it's time to decouple. But we're not at that point yet.
I completely agree with you that I'm not going to tell any businessman who is doing business that he cannot do business with someone, like you said, who we were not engaged in a conflict, military conflict with. We're not engaged in military conflict with China, even though right now, and since going back 20, 25 years, we've been at an economic war with China, and that has been documented by many different people with what the Chinese have said and what they have written in their intentions. And, the Germans, they would have done well by reading Mein Kampf. When Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, all he did was tell them what he was going to do, and then he did it. And all they had to do was read Mein Kampf. Well, if you want to find out what China is doing to us, go back and look at many of the different conversations that we have had with China, that China has had on the international level, and they have openly admitted that their job is to destroy America from within and from without, and they're going to try to do that without a military conflict, because they know that would just devastate both countries. It would just leave both countries in a barren nuclear apocalypse. And they know that there's no money in a nuclear apocalypse. So they're going to try to beat us through using our own markets and stuff, and using people like David Brock Smith to, work in China, and use people like this gentleman on the right that he's shaking hands with. That gentleman right there, I forget his title. He's its own, I believe it's some type of chamber of commerce from China, but he is a businessman, and I forget the name of this gentleman, but he is a high-ranking official in the Chinese Communist Party, and that's who David is shaking his hands with. And if you look at the next slide, there's David right there, and on his left lapel is the Chinese flag. It would be a cold day in hell before I'd ever pin a Chinese pledge pin on my lapel. And David is a fool to think that he can deal and compromise with those people. And you have to believe that he thinks he can compromise with these people because he believes he can compromise with the American Democratic leftists who are in Salem, because he thinks he is so smart, playing that three-dimensional chess where he basically tells them one thing, tells us another, and lies to both. And it's not three-dimensional chess. It's just deceit that he thinks he's winning at, but actually he's being used by the Democrats. And I believe he's being used by the Chinese. And that's why I'd prefer someone like you sitting in his position.
Yeah, the thing that you hear people talking about it, but I don't think people realize how insidious it is. This cultural Marxism that includes everything that they're doing to our children in the public schools. Okay, yep. the transgender extremism. I heard the other day that I guess it's Generation X, the younger people. Right now, 30%. If this is true, it blows my mind. 30% of them are identifying as LGBTQ plus. 30% of Generation X.
And I say that's because they're confused. It's not that they're sexually, they actually sexually are the way they say they are. I think they're mentally confused.
Yeah, and this could be because of TikTok. It's a cultural thing that is happening in our school systems. Our school systems have been run by a bunch of leftists, the unions, a bunch of leftists running the school system. A lot of the teachers are leftists. Most people coming out of average colleges are leftists nowadays because they're being taught by Marxist professors. I went to college for 3 years. It was already getting that way back in the early 80s, Arizona State University. And it's like Arizona State University now, I've heard recently that it's like totally way off to the left. The university is now. So, and most universities are. So we are in what is similar to the cultural revolution that happened in China. Our culture is being destroyed. Our kids are being confused. It's happening from within. But it's also happening from outside. China is still exerting influence from China into our country. And when you see a person that is compromised, most likely by Chinese money, in the case of Brock Smith, he is most likely compromised by Chinese money through his donor, his main donor, who has direct connections to China, and and is doing a lot of business in luxury hotels in China. And when you're invested in business in China, you're connected to the CCP. That's just the way it is. And here's the deal: when our elected officials vote for things like tampons in boys' bathrooms, and you think they might be compromised, you have to wonder, is that cultural Marxism? Are they actually impacting our young boys, our young men? Are they impacting their masculinity as part of a cultural attack? Because that's the way China is doing it. That's why TikTok in America is not the same as TikTok in China. They are actually intentionally damaging our young people, and the transgender movement is also part of that. You see the cultural damage, especially in our universities. Like I said, most of the people that go to college nowadays, they come out, they're full-blown Marxists. I am around people that are actually Marxists. They may not know it, but when you talk to them, that's what they are. And collectivism, Tina Kotek has talked about it. I read a thing from the vice president of the Oregon China Council, and she was promoting collectivism. She's
Yes.
a white lady. She's not Chinese, but she's promoting collectivism as a better way than individuality. So I just read a deal that she wrote. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that is insidious, and it actually, I wrote an editorial and quoted Andrew Breitbart that said, politics is downstream from culture. And, right. and so really, when it comes to unrestricted warfare, China's one of their really most potent attack points is the attack on our culture. And that turns into policies that people like David Brock Smith vote on or don't vote on.
Well, I have to, in defense of this younger generation, if you looked at a picture of me and my friends back in 1980 or 82, we had long hair. Some of us had eyeliners. We're wearing net stocking shirts, you know what I mean? And we had bandanas on our arms, and we wore big shoes with big shoelaces in them. And that was the age of the big hair band. And it was a little, I look at pictures and it's almost like we were dressed as transgender people today. I mean, and so I have to say, hopefully these kids will grow out of it. We grew out of it. You grow up. I'm embarrassed by those pictures today. I look at them, but they were the best times of my life. You know what I mean? It was when you're young, you're with your friends, you're having a great time. And wow, you look at it and go, what a bunch of prima donnas we were, you know what I mean? I'd kick my ass from 20, 30, 40 years ago, And so, yeah, it's, and I look at the hippie generation, the Mick Jagger generation and stuff. And parents were saying the same thing about that generation then. I remember my grandparents. I remember my grandfather, Pop. My uncles would walk in the door, and the first thing he would say sometimes, "You're a bunch of dopers, you damn dopers," as he was drinking his whiskey and smoking his Camels. And it's like, okay, Pop, sober up and call your kids dopers. And yeah, so it's, I hate to be hard on the generation, but it is it's a lot different when it's being pushed at a medical and psychological level that it's being pushed at today, because labels were something we stayed away from. Nobody used labels back then. We had people who were gay, we had people who were trans, but we didn't have those labels. Those were just things that were there, that were present, and we didn't identify it. We would stay away from, our pronouns. You know what I mean? That kind of garbage where you try to label people and pigeonhole them and put them and compartmentalize them and put them in boxes. It's wrong. And I think that's the bigger problem here. And like I said, it's on a psychological and medical issue. That's now occurring on a different level.
You're talking about, what we're talking about is identity politics.
Yeah.
So, that's what the left does. They break us into groups and then they pit us against one another. I mean, that's how you destroy a society if you're a Marxist. There's a number of techniques that they use, and that's one of the big ones. So I grew up in the 60s, and I graduated from high school in 77. So what years I came through.
Yeah, I remember 1977. My uncles had hair down to their ass, and they were listening to Judas Priest. You know what I mean? It was like,
yeah. Oh no, it's wild. And we got around a little bit of weed now and then. We did. And, I've always maintained that. I'm a politician
right.
now. You got it. But anyways, so yeah, it was all there. We all know what it was. It's kind of fun now because, like, I'm around people, like, sometimes when I'm talking, and I'm thinking, probably almost everyone in this room was probably smoked pot. I mean,
right.
But when you're younger, you look around and all those people, it's like most of them were probably straight. They probably drank, but now I'm old, and all the old people around me, guess what? We grew up in the 60s. So what we were, what the generation we went through, and what most of us probably found ourselves involved into, at least some extent.
Right.
Yeah, I grew up actually in the 70s. So I was born in 59, but I had an older brother, breaking trail in front of me. So that helps a lot too,
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. That's like I said, I had uncles who were probably the same age difference that you and I are apart. I was born in 66. So yeah, that's not a huge separation, but it's just big enough to have seen that change, you know what I mean? And things do change, and we got to give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt that they'll pull out of this, but it's on
I agree.
such a level where you see now people who are in their 30s and 40s and even some people in their 50s who are practicing this dogma of communism and collectivism, and they never grew out of it. And you're like, didn't you realize communism was bad? I mean, I remember when the wall fell, I remember Ronald Reagan and his, tear down this wall. And that was back at that point when that happened. We never thought that that was ever going to occur. We thought that that was going to go on for a long time, and we won the Cold War. At least we thought we won. I'm not sure if we actually did.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I would say that I think one of the biggest changes that the younger generations are dealing with that we didn't deal with is the cell phone. If you want to know the truth, I'm struggling with mine a little bit because I've always kept away from them because I didn't have cell service in Tiller. We live way out in the hills, and now I'm learning how to use a cell phone, and it's kind of interesting to me. But all these kids, they've had their faces in these cell phones for many years now. For the last 10 years, I've been watching it. And I think I actually think that the cell phones have really damaged the kids. Honest to God, I do.
Too.
They don't. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, you look at the graduation rate among high schoolers compared to the ability of them to read proficiently at a 12th grade level. There was one district in Chicago where 0% of the students could read proficiently at a 12th grade level, but yet 88% of them had graduated.
Yeah.
How does that work?
If you just look at the lives that we lived, I look back at my elementary school experience and my whole public education. I actually got a great education through the public education system. I grew up in Ohio, and it was wonderful. I mean, I learned how to write. We write cursive. We knew grammar. We knew history. We had civics. We did math. We came out with pre-calculus. Right. I mean, we were very well educated. Even those of us who got a little off track throughout the high school process, like so many did in those years, we still were well educated. Right. We still were prepared to go on to college if we wanted to. I feel very blessed. I mean, I've built a lot of houses. I'm a builder, and I'm also a logger and a timber cutter, and a lot of you know my history, but I'm educated. I mean, I can read anything, I can understand anything, I can articulate anything, I can write, I can do anything that a fully educated, highly successful in the business world can do. I can do all those things, even though I'm a logger and a builder and more of a hands-on type of guy, because I received an excellent education. And I do not think that our children in the generations, the whatever you want to call them, the X and the Y and whatever generation, whatever, the ones that I've watched in the recent 20, 30 as children come out of schools, including my children and my grandchildren, some of them have fairly decent educations, depending on what school they went to, various kind of like location specific. The inner city schools, not so good. Some of these, like Days Creek Charter School, I'm on the board of Days Creek Charter School, and I think we're doing really good with the kids. I'm really proud to be on the board of a charter school that I think we're putting out well educated. So there's still some around. You got to pick the right school. But in
There are
general,
some,
I do not see a very good quality education coming out of the public schools right now for kids. It's sad. Very sad.
And part of that is because of the Chinese influence over our
Exactly.
education, and they have laundered or filtered $100 million in the last couple of years into the K through 12 and college education here in Oregon. That is a fact. And that's
It
why,
is.
like you said, there are people who believe that our politicians are the most corrupted by China. And we already know that in Canada, and we know this because the government did its own report on this, and I think it was like 30-40% of the representatives in different levels of the government in Canada were compromised by China. They were either being bribed or blackmailed by the communist Chinese. And I honestly believe that's happening here. And I would not be surprised if it's happening to David Brock Smith.
Yeah, I got a figure here. I just happened to I was looking at some of this stuff before we started talking. I got a figure here. It says that China spent $280 million in the last 6 years. $280 million to influence U.S. politicians.
Yeah.
$280 million in the last 6 years. And there's probably a lot more than that in reality. But yeah, no, they're investing heavily into all different areas that they can attack our culture and our politics, our elections. They are nefarious characters. That's all there is to it.
And a lot of those products that we're selling to China are raw material that because China has many of our manufacturing factories over there now that we used to have here. We used to have a huge manufacturing industry here, and we don't have them like we used to. Well, we're sending them our raw products, such as minerals, the iron, the steel, and all that stuff, the trees, the wood, and even beyond the food, but all the other raw material. And then they are processing it in their manufacturing centers and selling it back to us and making much more money on us selling them our raw products and they're creating jobs for their people where we've lost those jobs here. And so, I wonder if anyone ever did an analysis of how many manufacturing jobs we have lost and how much of that we're buying back from China, that if we weren't buying them back in China, we would have those jobs and we would be selling those products right here in America.
Yeah, if you look at this thing comprehensively, we have on our North American landmass, we have just about all the resources we need to do everything we need to do as a society. Everything. Yep. We have the oil, we have the natural gas, we have the minerals, we have lithium here in America, we have uranium, we have cobalt, we have almost all of the minerals. We have rare earth minerals. You people hear about rare earth minerals? Well, we have them here. We have water, we have timber, we have everything that we need to turn raw materials into finished products, which is what drives an economy. We have the human workforce here. We actually have every single thing we need. If we wanted to absolutely isolate, if we wanted to be isolationists, we have the farmland, we have it all. America has it all. We are so blessed. We do not need to purchase anything from any country in the world. If it came right down to it, we could sustain our own population from our own raw materials right here in America. But we'd have to mine. Oh, we'd have to dig some holes, brother. We'd have to drill some holes. Yeah, we'd have to get some oil. We'd have to get some natural gas. We'd have to harvest some timber.
And you know what else we'd have to do? We would have to educate our kids and discipline them to be the workers that we know they could be if they were getting that discipline, if they were getting that education, if they saw value in working with their hands and working to solve problems. If we actually were creating a generation that was doing that, we might be able to survive if we ever had to become isolationists. But now, without that workforce, it's kind of scary to think if we had to depend on, these 20-year-olds and these teens that are coming up. I don't know if we could do it.
No, we couldn't, because they don't know how to survive. They don't know how to butcher things. They don't know how to kill and butcher
Right.
an animal. They don't know how to grow a garden, and they sure don't know how to put a garden up to where you can eat it all year long.
Yeah, but they can put a condom on a cucumber. So,
Yeah, exactly. They don't know how to do the basic things that everybody knew how to do when, throughout all the 1900s and stuff. We used to be a rural country. Most people lived in most people had a family garden. Most people had some chickens. Most people grew their own meat back in the day, before we turned it all into, the inner cities. Then suburbia happened. Then the whole culture moved away from that self-sustaining type lifestyle. Now, my wife and I are actually still living it. And so are a lot of people. And a lot of people are starting to move back into that, because they realize the value of being able to sustain yourself. And people are also beginning to enjoy putting up their own food and knowing it's safe and growing it themselves. So you're seeing a bit of a move back towards that type of thing. But I will say that this country is so blessed that we could build factories. We could mine what we need to nickel and stuff to make our own steel. We can actually do everything we need right here on this continent. And all we need is to have people that are trained, that are willing to work. We can build factories. I mean, I come from steel country. I come from Ohio, Canton, Ohio. Akron made tires. Canton made Republic Steel. We made bearings, Timken roller bearings. I mean, we actually have in this country everything we need. And what happened to us? Everything is getting shipped to China. We're buying everything back from them. We don't even have any kind of essential minerals to make our own medicine. We are totally relying on China for medicine.
Yeah.
We're relying on them for everything.
And they're stealing our intellectual property. So they're not even having to create their own intellectual property, because they're stealing it from us.
We took, it's like they used to say, you could screw up a wet dream. Well, that's what we've done. Basically, we took the most beautiful, most perfect situation that a nation could have, and we just, pissed it away. And now we're dealing with this thing in terms that it's going to be really hard to get it back. But I will say this, Rob, if we're going to get it back, we're going to have to decouple from China over the next decade. We're going to have to start moving back into the zone. We're going to have to tell the greenies, hey, we're not going along with your plan no more. First of all, China's not going along with your plan. We don't need windmills out in the ocean for energy. And we know we don't need that. We don't need any of this stuff. We got what we need. It all makes sense. We can make this thing work so easy. But the only way for us to do that is to say no to the leftists and to actually begin to live the lives as Americans that we know we need to do. We need to start mining again. We need to start producing oil and natural gas again. We need to start using coal again. We need to just do everything that we know we need to do. But how can we do it when we've got half of the society pushing back against us and telling us lies, like the world is about to be destroyed because of CO2? I mean, sooner or later, we got to just call it what it is. That's a bunch of BS. We're not going to go along with your BS story no more. We're going to do what we know we need to do to become a strong nation again. That's what Donald Trump's going to do. And that's what the movement needs to do. We need to tell the America First movement. That's what America First is. We need to tell everybody in this country, the other half that's got that leftist crap going on in their heads, we need to say, nope, you guys are wrong. You got led astray. Now we're taking over, and we're going to start running this show again. Because if we don't, we're going to lose the whole thing.
You're damn
and
right.
That means people better stand up and get pissed, man. That's all I can say.
You're damn right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's because we don't want a military conflict. We don't want a civil war. But at some point, we're going to have to push back, and it may cause something on that level, and nobody wants it. But the fact is that they're destroying our country. They have made us dependent on other countries now for our pharmaceuticals, for the energy that we need to run this country. When we could all be doing that ourselves, we could be doing that and be self-sufficient right now. And in fact, I would argue the fact that we're trying these new technologies that are failed technologies, and that we still have to depend on China to have those technologies, such as solar and the wind turbines that they build, we're losing the ability to make other fuels that we've had for a long time, fuels like coal, fuels like gas and oil, fuels like natural gas. I mean, all of those technologies, we're losing the ability to make them even cleaner and more efficient because we're not using them as much. And because there's not that demand, they're not going to push for those newer technologies. And we're going to lose big on this. And we better pull it together.
Exactly.
And I don't know what it's going to take.
It's
Maybe
going to
some
take the
people are going to have
movement.
to go hungry.
It's going to take the movement. It's going to actually take the America First movement, the people that see it for what it is, know what we're talking about right now in this conversation. There's a bunch of us out here, Rob, that I think we actually have the numbers to do this. But people need to actually get active. They need to start going, no more of this crap. I'm not buying your climate lies. I'm not going to buy your EVs. Guess what? This whole electric vehicle thing is about to blow up in the lefties' faces because you know what?
Yep.
Americans aren't buying their crap. What are they going to
They
do
don't-
with all these cars?
They don't go very far, and they don't work very well in the wintertime. And so, well, another thing they can do besides getting involved is vote for people like you. And
That's right.
I think we've had an incredible conversation here. I really enjoyed this.
Me
Um,
too.
before I get out of here, I want to remind everyone that Todd is running for office for Senate District 1, and you can check out his website. It's right there at the bottom of the screen, toddvaughn.com, and go to toddvaughn.com. And if you're so inclined, please give a donation, because that's what politics runs on, is money. And Todd, before I get you out of here, because it's been an incredible hour and a half or so, is there anything you would like to tell the listeners before you go?
Yeah, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Don't get discouraged. I think we all have, COVID hit and everything has been so weird ever since. And we all feel this thing slipping away. It's probably especially in Oregon. But don't lose hope, you guys, because God can do miracles at any time. I think if you were there when Donald Trump won in 2016, I was still awake when he won, right? And
Right.
it was a miracle. I mean, it was a miracle. So miracles can happen. They will happen. And you guys just get involved. If you're sitting on your couch feeling like we're going to get our asses kicked, my vote don't count because they're cheating, all that, if you're having those feelings, just realize that you got to keep trying. Donald Trump's going to win this election again. When he does, things are going to change. There's better times coming. Keep trying and keep your nose to the grindstone, man. Keep working, because this country can turn around. It's not over yet. We haven't gone over the edge yet, but you guys, everybody needs to get up and get involved. The movement is real. And if everybody just gets involved, we can still pull this thing out.
If you love America.
Yes.
And there he is, Todd Vaughn. It's like you're a superhero there. I like that picture. I really do like that.
The Axeman.
The Axeman. Chop it out. Chop out corruption. And yeah, that's a good thing. Well, Todd, it's been a wonderful time talking with you. I'm going to let you go, and we'll get you back on here to discuss a little bit more, because I think I'm hoping, even if let's say for some reason you don't win this election, maybe there's another election in your future. There's always hope, right?
That's right. You know, you never know. Some of those commissioners could be replaced too, right?
That's right. Hey, that's a good thing. All right, man. You take care and you have a good night and tell your wife I said hello, okay?
Always fun, Rob. Enjoyed.
Thank you. You have a good one. All right. Yeah, that was Todd Vaughn. He's a good man, and I hope you people consider voting for him. We need good people in office. We need to change things out. And it's only going to happen if you get involved. If you get involved, if you take that step, and I know it's a pain in the ass. I hate dealing with snotty Republicans. I hate dealing with commie Democrats. I hate dealing with people who, are just going to be obstinate. I hate it too. I hate it too. And it's just going to happen. That's just life. And you want to teach your kids how to conduct themselves in this world, then you got to be the leader. You got to be the leader that you want. You all want a leader. Everyone wants a leader, someone that they can get behind. Well, you be that leader. You be that leader and try to do the best you can. Let's change the subject a little bit. There are some meetings that are going on, and they're happening. The Livability Committee, boy, ain't that a leftist loony term right there. The Livability Committee, like I need a committee to make life livable. I don't need a committee to make life livable. In fact, the last thing you need if you want to make life livable is to have a committee, because nothing good comes out of a committee. But well, they're having a meeting. The Livability Committee is having a meeting Thursday, March 28th. That's a little ways away, but I wanted to tell you about it. It's at the Coos Bay City Hall Council Chambers. And it says, join the conversation with city councilors Stephanie Kilmer, Drew Farmer, and Sarah Stevens. Like, they're going to be able to solve your livability problems. Would you really want Drew Farmer and Sarah Stevens trying to solve your life's problems? I mean, I think that's the problem with government. It's so involved with all of our lives. That's why everything's screwed up. Nobody takes responsibility for themselves. And they're not the leaders that they want to be. Instead, they look at these phonies right here on the city council. I wouldn't trust these three people to make any of the right decisions for me. But if you want to go to the Livability Committee, we've got the livability. It's all about living, man. You heard of hillbillies? Well, this is livability. And they got a committee, and they're going to have a meeting. And I don't know really what the hell they're going to talk about, but it was reported, and I thought you folks might want to know about it. Let's see. What was the other one that we had here? Excuse me. The City of Coos Bay Town Hall meeting. Join the community conversation. The community. There's that word, community. I don't belong to their community. Now, whatever the hell community they're talking about in this flyer here that the city sent out, I don't belong to that community. I'm an individual who lives in a city, and that city has representatives, and those representatives are supposed to listen to me. I shouldn't have to listen to them, but they're having a town hall meeting, and I think this one is on the Devereaux Center, and it's happening much sooner than that last meeting, and this one's happening on Wednesday, March 6th, which is just 5 days away from now. This is March 6th on Wednesday at 6 p.m. at the Egyptian Theater. So, it gives you an excuse to get out to the Egyptian Theater, I guess. It's a beautiful place. The lady who runs it, she's a wonderful lady. And we can talk about the Devereaux Center in there. And if you want to sign those Devereaux petitions, I believe Herbal Choices now has them, so you can sign them at their stores. I think at North Bend and in Coos Bay, they now have the Devereaux Center petitions at Herbal Choices. And Herbal Choices is, they were one of my sponsors. They're still my sponsors, and I haven't had them on the air in a while. I haven't advertised them, but I will get them on soon because they're wonderful people, and I appreciate all they've done to support me. And another group, another wonderful business, because you have to be a wonderful business to sponsor me, is 3H Tree Service. Matt Holman and the guys, if you need to remove those trees, those Antifa trees, as I'd like to call them, you know, the ones that are disease ridden and bug infested and are a liability because at any time they could catch fire. Yeah, the Antifa trees. You don't want to have those Antifa trees running wild in your yard. So, you know, you may want to take care of that problem. And you want to do that, then Matt Holman is the person that can help you with that. And that's 3H Tree Service, 541-294-1800. Or check out their Facebook page. Their Facebook page is really cool because Matt Holman, he goes up 90 feet in the air and he's got a cigarette in one hand and a chainsaw in another, taking out those trees. And it's really cool. Like I said, they do it with surgical precision. I love the way they take care of things, and they do a great job. Tom and Giggs, go over and see Tim over at Tom and Giggs, Tim and Josh. If you need a remote control car, they got quite a few. If you need your mufflers done, you need a tonneau cover, Tom and Giggs is the place to go. I would highly recommend it. Tim will take care of you. Josh will take care of you, and they'll fix up all your automotive needs. Plus, they got a really cool logo. I've always enjoyed that logo. That's just really cool there. And then I remember another sponsor of mine, Oregon Firearms Federation, the only no-compromise gun organization in Oregon. They're fighting against Measure 114. They've spent over, I don't know how many millions of dollars in the last 20 years to fight against the attack on our Second Amendment rights. So, you know, don't give to the Republican Party. Give to the Oregon Firearms Federation. They're the ones who are really fighting for your Second Amendment rights. All the Republicans are going to do is give it to, you know, one of those snotty candidates that isn't going to represent you even if they do win. So I would highly recommend, if you want to give money to a group that's going to fight for your rights, Kevin Sterrett over at the Oregon Firearms Federation. I was talking to Kevin today, and you know, he's gosh, you know, we were talking about, we always get into the same kind of conversation. You know, is there a political solution? Is there a political solution to all of our problems? I really don't think so. I think the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and we just might be just enjoying the ride until we get there. Or at some point we may be able to pull ourselves out. Who knows? Who knows? You know, I'm sure that during other times throughout our history, I'm sure the people during the Revolution, when the British were attacking, were thinking the same thing. I'm sure the people who lived through the expansion to the West and went through hardship, you know, traveling to the West, I'm sure they thought the same thing. I'm sure the Indians, who had all these white people coming into their territories, thought the same thing. Oh, the world's ending. Look, damn Europeans are coming over. I guess we should have built a wall. And so, you know, I imagine that many times throughout history, World War I, World War II, people thought the world was coming to an end. And, you know, I can see how you look at the world today and might think it's so, but we could go on for a long time. You really never know. You really never know how much longer we can go. And so don't give up. You know, giving up is, well, I can accept trying, but I can't accept surrender. If you want to talk about surrender to me, then you can go to hell. I'm not interested in surrender. And so, you know, when I'm talking to Kevin Sterrett and we're talking about how, you know, there may be no political solution, we still have to do the dance. We still have to go through the political mores of society. You have to go through all of those political avenues that you can to change the world. And I guess that gives you an alibi when you have to start the revolution. When you start the revolution, and if you lose and the enemy comes up to you and says, hey, why were you shooting at us? Well, hey, look, we tried to change it politically, and you wanted us to wear dresses and cut off our dinghies. And we didn't want to cut off our dinghies, so we shot back. And, you know, you laugh at that, but that may be what starts the next revolution is forced transgender operations. Yes. That's coming next. They're going to start forcing certain men to have transgender operations, and it's going to be blamed on toxic masculinity. That's what's going to happen. We're going to have so much toxic masculinity. You're going to be forced to wear a dress and have a lop it off of me. That's right. And it's going to be a sad day when that happens, because I don't think a lot of guys are going to put up with it. I know I ain't going to put up with it. And so that's pretty much where we're going. Don't forget, I will be back on Monday. I'm not even sure who the guest is. Maybe I'll just stand here and rant for 2.5 hours. I don't know. On Monday, that's just maybe what I'll do, but or not. Maybe I'll have a really cool guest. I guess you'll have to find out. So tune in Monday at 3:00, same time, same bat channel. I'll be on YouTube. I'll be on Rumble. And if you are on YouTube and are on Rumble, would you please like, share, and subscribe my page? You know, that helps me out the most. If you like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to my account and share it with your friends. If you have friends who are like-minded, tell them to check it out. I just talked to Todd Vaughn for about an hour and 40 minutes. They want a good candidate for Senate District 1. Well, he's the guy to talk to, so I'd highly recommend it. And you know, there's always an alternative. And so we will be seeing you on Monday. Don't forget there's a commissioners meeting on this Tuesday. And the city of Coos Bay is also having a city council meeting on Tuesday. So it's you got to watch those bastards. You got to watch those bastards. Those county commissioners, they're slick little foxes. And those city councilors, they're just as bad. You got to watch those people. You got to watch them all the time. They may not intend on being the people who steal your rights and take all your money in the guise of taxes, but that's what they do. That's what they do. They keep taking more and more of our taxes. They keep taking more and more of our rights. And then they pat us on the back and say, oh, you just don't understand the complexities of politics. Yeah, we understand it. We bend over and you screw us. That's politics. And so I'm tired of it. So you got to watch these people. Don't let them get behind you. That's for damn sure. So you got to watch those people. So until then, folks, until Monday when I'm back on the air, carry on, Coos County. Carry on.